Patricia firmly believes that life doesn't have to be a struggle. Is that true?
That absolutely.
Okay. A certified professional coach and energy leadership master practitioner, she loves helping people to see things differently. Today, she'll help you do just that, describing her journey and sharing ideas to help you grow bold too. Please welcome Patricia Brooks.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
When I was a teenager, I used to love to write. I wrote for my high school newspaper, for the yearbook. I wrote in my diary just about every day. I even wrote a teen novel and submitted it to a competition. It didn't win. Years later, I tried to read that manuscript and realized why I was rejected. It wasn't very good. But after high school, I stopped writing altogether. About 5 years ago, when I was in my mid-50s, I found myself working at a financial services organization. At that point in my career, I had earned my MBA. I had become a certified project management professional, and I had years of project management under my belt. But for some reason, the assignments I was being given were in a supportive capacity. And that really frustrated me. I wanted assignments I could dig my teeth into. I wanted to drive projects to completion. And in order to deal with my emotions, my frustration, my annoyance, my self-doubt even, I started to write again. And that made me realize that for 30 years, I had not written. I had not done this thing that I really found joy in. And it made me wonder why I had stopped in the first place. And I thought back to that contest that I had entered and thought, well, was that the reason? And it wasn't, because I still had this dream to become a published author one day. And so I realized it was something deeper and more traumatic. When I was 15, my stepfather saw some changes in me and my personality that he didn't like. And he wanted to find out why. So he went searching, and he found the answers on the pages of my diary, where I had written about my relationship with my private flute teacher, who was 32 years old. And he had taken indecent liberties with me. The police called it statutory rape. And I was so mortified that my first intimate encounters were being read by my parents, by the police, and not just one police department, but two, because the crime had been committed in two separate jurisdictions. And I felt that I was to blame for the pain that my parents were experiencing, for the pain that my flute teacher probably was experiencing, and for the pain that I was experiencing, because I had created this paper trail, this evidence. And so I found a need to protect myself and to stop writing altogether. But now 30 years had passed, and I felt the need to write again in order to deal with these emotions I was experiencing at this unsatisfying job. And so I wrote, and it was very therapeutic. It really helped me process things. I also decided to start reading self-help books. And something in one of them really struck me, and it really changed the course of my life. I write about it in Growing Bold, and I want to read an excerpt about that to you. Life has caused many shifts, sometimes after changes outside my control. Parents won't live forever, ever, and neither will I. Therefore, I must stop playing at life. Sometimes after the gradual appearance of new viewpoints. Public speaking isn't really dreadful. It can actually be fun. Usually, though, shifts take time and self-examination. This particular change in my thinking, sudden and memorable, came while reading a book. I knew it was time to move forward, as I'd been unable to do in my first job out of college. I prepared to let go. To help gather myself, I browsed the work of Stuart Wilde, a New Age philosopher. This passage caught my eye. If you want to be accepted, accept yourself. If you want to be acknowledged, acknowledge yourself. I'd heard and read similar sentiments before, but these sentences struck me. The way he expressed these truths and the place where I was in my life made me unusually receptive. I longed so much for challenge and needed so deeply to grow that I added my own words to his. If you want to feel challenged, challenge yourself. The seed once planted sprouted overnight. I would create a challenge for myself, making it easier to endure the monotony and irritation at work. A challenge could be my life jacket, floating me through until my contract ended and I moved on to better things. If you want to be challenged, challenge yourself. When I said it, I felt strong, strength that sent me looking for a challenge to tackle. 2 afternoons later, on a third cup of coffee, which I needed because I felt tired all the time, and fighting the scratchy cough and congestion of raging allergies, the challenge appeared. I would eat more healthfully, which might ease the allergies and help me shed a few pounds in the process. That passage really changed the course of my life because it helped me see things differently. It helped me realize that I didn't need to look outside of myself for somebody to give me a challenge, that I could be empowered and challenge myself. And so that was the point where I considered doing Weight Watchers again. 12 years earlier, I had lost 50 pounds on the program, but that was 12 years before, and I was older and my metabolism was changing. Would I be able to still lose the weight? I wasn't so sure, and so I had to dig down deep into some past accomplishments that I had achieved that I didn't think I could in order to build self-confidence and to take that first step to rejoin Weight Watchers. And I did, and that was the start of my 75-pound weight loss journey. And it was going through the planning my meals and weighing in every week and seeing the weight loss on the scale and feeling how much better I felt. That gave me more confidence to continue and do more. And so while I did the Weight Watcher plan, and I decided that I would continue to journal because that was very helpful in processing my feelings around that unfulfilling job. And I really felt like I was growing and blossoming. 2 years after I started writing again, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. And a few months later, she died. That first year without her was so tough, but so was I. I found myself for the second time in 3 years being the executrix of someone's estate. And I was doubtful that I'd be able to manage in life without a living parent because my father had died 3 years earlier. But I knew I also wanted to make them proud of me. And so I dug down and I was strong. And I only broke down in a fit of grief 2 times during that first year. The first one was 4 months after her death, and it was the day before I started a new job. And I was feeling anxious and concerned about what this new job would hold for me. And I realized I'd had this feeling so many times before in my life. It was a very familiar feeling. At the start of every new school year, I felt this feeling. At the start of every new job, I felt this feeling. But what made this time so hard for me was it was the first day without my biggest cheerleader, my mom, to encourage me. I remember she used to tell me, "Patricia, you'll do fine. People like you. You'll make new friends. Besides, you're so smart. You're more than capable of doing a good job. I love you." Those words of encouragement I so needed to hear that year, of course, did not come, but the tears did. The second time I broke down was at my 25th college reunion in Massachusetts. I decided I wanted to have the full reunion experience, and I was going to stay on campus in a dorm room. It was a Saturday in May that was crisp and cool, and I had participated in the festivities in the morning. There was a parade, and I was really enjoying myself. Between the festivities in the morning and the activities in the evening, there was some downtime, so I took the opportunity to go back to my room and rest a bit. And I got to the room, and I could feel the coolness of that May day, and I sat on the side of the bed. And all of a sudden, I burst out in tears. I was sobbing uncontrollably. I had this hollow, aching loneliness, this feeling of having been forsaken, this feeling of homesickness that I'd felt in September of 1985 when my parents had dropped me off at college for the first time. I remember that day so clearly, standing on the second floor landing of my dormitory, peering out of the big bay window, watching my mom and stepfather drive away home south to New Jersey without me. I felt sick to my stomach, and that was exactly how I felt at reunion. The big difference between how I felt in 1985 and how I felt at my 25th reunion was that the cure for my homesickness was not a simple 5-hour train ride home to my mom. My mom was gone forever. I dug down and I managed to participate in the rest of the reunion activities, but it was difficult. It was really challenging. 3 months later, I had another emotional experience, but this time it was a joyous feeling. And it was ironic because it was one day after the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death. I felt jubilant, victorious, accomplished. Because at the start of that year, I didn't know that I would be able to manage without a living parent to guide me and encourage me and to love me. But what I realized that day was that I had not only survived, but I thrived, accomplishing some really big things, like cleaning out my mom's house of 34 years of stuff, getting it ready for sale, getting it sold. And I also was able to start a new job and get along well there in the job. And I did manage to go through those periods of grief. Although it wasn't pretty, I made it through. And so I felt accomplished. And I realized in that moment that my parents had given me everything I needed to manage through life without them. And it made me look and think about what else I could accomplish if I was able to do this in the year following my mother's death. That was when I decided that I would pick up French again, take French lessons. And I would start traveling to French-speaking countries. I went to Quebec City, Canada, and to France several times. And in fact, that's where I got the idea for Growing Bold and the inspiration. And I felt that I was doing things that my parents would be doing if they were alive. I felt like I was living dreams that they had left unrealized. I felt like I was living a bold life. Each of you has the ability to live a bold life. Living boldly comes from making changes. And making changes comes from being aware of what it is you truly want, of having these shifts in perspective so that you feel confident in your abilities to tackle that change. It comes from setting goals and reaching and working toward them. In the story I just shared with you, it illustrates how I took on a goal that had great meaning to me, and how I was able to shift my perspective around challenge and look to myself for those challenges instead of outside of myself. And I had to dig down and find that confidence so I could take that first step. But it's made all the difference because that shift in my thinking, that confidence I had, setting that goal has changed the course of my life and has laid the foundation for where I am today. These three elements, setting a meaningful goal, shifting your perspective, and building confidence, self-confidence, are the three catalysts for growing bold that I describe in my book. What are you not accomplishing because you doubt your ability to do it? What are you not experiencing? What exciting and bold things are you not experiencing because you're afraid to take that first step? I encourage you to read Growing Bold and learn from my stories. Take the time to do the activities and learn from your own. Do this so that you can experience the peace and joy and contentment that comes from living a life you love.